My channel. Today is Monday, and we're going to be filming True Crime and Makeup Monday. Please ignore the hair dye on my shoulder. Dyed my hair over the weekend. Today we're going to be talking about the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart. So without further ado, let's get into it. As always, content warning. We talk about graphic crime scenes and atrocious crimes, death of children, sometimes rape, and of course, necrophilia and serial killers. On September 22nd, 2006, Cassie Jo Stoddart, a high school student, was murdered by her classmates Brian Lee Draper, born March 21st, 1990, and Tori Michael Adam Adamczyk in her aunt and uncle's house in Pocatello, Idaho, United States. Stoddart's body was discovered 2 days later when her relatives returned home from their trip. The perpetrators claim that they were inspired to murder Stoddart by the slasher film Scream. Now, if you're too young to remember this, maybe you probably shouldn't be here. But this was just like one of those it wasn't very good even for its time, but they're very similar to like Halloween in that there was like 5, 6, 7, 8 videos or something like that, and it started out as two kids murdering their classmate or wanting to murder their classmate, and yeah, so that apparently gave them the inspiration to go after Cassie. Which led to them being nicknamed the Scream Killers. Adamczyk and Draper recorded documentary-style videos about how they were horror movie fans, especially Scream, and wanted to reenact a similar murder in real life. They started a death list of other potential victims the day of Stoddart's murder, following their initial plan. Both perpetrators received sentences of life imprisonment without parole on August 31st, 2007. I had already graduated high school. Cassie Jo Stoddart was a 16-year-old student at Pocatello High School. She, along with Draper and Adamczyk, were 11th graders at the school. Brian Draper spent most of his childhood in Utah after he moved with his family to Pocatello, Idaho. He met Tori when they were both students at Pocatello High School. Both boys were interested in films and started recording them on their own. On the night of September 22nd, 2006, Stoddart was house sitting for her aunt and uncle, Allison and Frank Contreras, on Whispering Cliffs Drive in northeast Bannock County. The Contreras family was out of town and had hired Stoddart to take care of their 3 cats and 2 dogs for the weekend. Stoddart was visited that evening by her boyfriend, Matt Beckham, who arrived around 6 p.m. Later, classmates Brian Draper and Tori Adamsick, who were both age 16 at the time, came over to the house to hang out. Stoddard gave the friends a tour of the house, including the basement. The four teens went into the living room to watch the film Kill Bill Volume 2, but Adamsick and Draper ended up leaving before the film ended, saying they wanted to watch a movie at their local movie theater instead. Stoddard and Beckham stayed behind. Stoddard was unaware that before the boys left, Draper had unlocked the basement door so that he and Adamsick could re enter the house undetected. Sometime after leaving the house on Whispering Cliffs, Draper and Adamsick returned to the neighborhood, parked down the street, got out of their car, and put on costumes consisting of dark clothing, gloves, and white painted masks. If you, again, have never seen the movie, yeah, this is essential. Go watch the movie, that's all I can say. They intentionally made loud noises in an unsuccessful attempt to lure Beckham and Stoddard downstairs so they could scare them. Next, they found the circuit breaker and turned off the power in the house, hoping the pair would come downstairs to check the breaker. When Beckham and Stoddard did not come downstairs, the boys soon turned some of the lights back on. Stoddard became uneasy after the temporary power outage, and Beckham noticed that one of the Contras' dogs kept staring down the basement stairs, periodically barking or growling. Seeing that Stoddard was scared, Beckham called his mother to ask if he could stay the night at the house with her to ease her mind, but she denied his request. Instead, she offered to let Stoddard come home with Beckham and stay at their house for the night, and she would bring Stoddard back to the Whispering Cliffs house the next morning. However, Stoddard felt it was her responsibility to stay at the house as she was hired to do and care for the animals, and declined the offer from Beckham's mother. The sad part of this is that if she had taken the offer, she would be alive. They would have had to go somewhere else, find a different victim, maybe reconsider doing the murder at all. And because she didn't go, and because Beckham did not stay, although if he had stayed, they probably would have just killed him too. I'm pretty sure that's like the plan was just to murder them both originally. Like I said, they were trying to lure both of them into the basement. So I think the original plan was like, they were going to kill them both. But because Beckham had to leave and Cassie did not go with him as had been offered, she became the sole victim of this plan. And so it's sad to think that if she had just accepted the offer and gone with them, then maybe, she would still be alive. They probably would have killed the animals, as unfortunate as that is. But she as a human being would have still been alive. At approximately 10:30 p.m., Beckham's mother picked him up, leaving Stoddard at the house alone. Beckham called a Domsick's cell phone to see where he and Draper were, possibly to meet up with them later. Beckham said he could barely hear Adamsick, who was whispering on the phone, and assumed the boys were in a movie theater. From the basement, Draper and Adamsick heard Beckham leave. The teens turned the lights out again at the circuit breaker and waited, hoping Stoddard would come downstairs to turn the lights back on. She did not. Eventually, the boys went upstairs. Draper was armed with a dagger-type weapon, and Adamsick had a hunting knife. The weapons having been purchased at a pawn shop. Pawn shop gave them the weapons to murder this girl. I'm not saying it's the pawn shop's fault, because it's not, so don't go there. But there should be age restrictions, I think, on knives. And I mean, I realize that that's not going to stop the crime, but like, if it's not like a cutting knife or a kitchen knife, which has been used to like commit murders, you know. Um, but I don't know. We put, restrictions on like guns and stuff. Why don't we do the same with knives? Just saying. Um, Draper opened and slammed a closet door at the top of the stairs to scare Stoddard, who was lying on the couch in the living room. The boys then brutally attacked her, stabbing her approximately 30 times, and 12 wounds were potentially fatal. So that just is a really fancy way of saying that 12 of the wounds could have been the wounds that killed her. But because there were so many, they're not absolutely sure which one was the fatal one. If you understand what I'm saying. So, like, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that statement. During the investigation of the murder, police found that Draper and Adamsick had recorded their plan to murder Stoddard in advance on videotape while they were at school. This video footage was shown at their trials. So they planned to kill Cassie. It wasn't, just oh, she's home alone, she's the perfect target, blah blah blah. They planned this out. Is basically Draper and Adamsick were arrested on September 27th, 2006, and charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. During the interrogations, each teen blamed the other. Also, not surprising, they're kids. I didn't do it, you made me. Draper claimed he was in the same room with Adamsick when Stoddard was killed, but denied stabbing her, then later admitted to stabbing her under alleged commands from Adamsick. He led investigators to Black Rock Canyon, where the teens had partially burned and then buried the clothing, masks, and weapons they used for murder. This is where police discovered a partially burned Sony VHS tape, which after restoration showed footage of their plans to kill Stoddard. At trial, the prosecution revealed that Draper had said he was inspired by Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Columbine shooters. I have a segment on them on my YouTube channel. Just look for Columbine shooters. It might be their names. I can't remember what I put it under. So it's either Columbine shooters or Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. So just look for that video if you are interested in seeing the story on the Columbine shooting. I did do a series where I did some school shootings. Not exactly, ideal role models for your children here, but yeah, that's where we are. And I mean, it's interesting that they said that that's who they were inspired by, and they also were inspired obviously by this movie, because Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold also said they were inspired by a movie, Natural Born Killers. Movies are not bad, but there are people watching movies that probably shouldn't be. Just saying. And then they let them watch TV in jail. That's the other thing that gets me. Like, you hear all of these tales of, oh, this movie inspired me to do what I did, and then you say, oh, well, you're gonna get to go to prison where you're gonna do nothing but watch more movies and TV. Although I think they probably monitor what they watch there. It's like news and shit. It's not like serial killer documentaries and stuff, which, I mean, fair. Later, Adamsick was said to have been inspired by the Scream horror film franchise. Draper was convicted on April 17th, 2007. Adamsick was convicted on June 8th, 2007. So April and June were the conviction dates. I think they started out like, they always offer, like, when you have a team of killers, they offer to do like a joint trial where you can like, you know, be convicted at the same time, or you can be tried together or whatever. But in this case, as I recall, the beta of this friendship, which was Adamczyk, did not want to be tried with his partner in crime. Not that I blame him, because that guy was cuckoo bananas. But, yeah. But there was that offer made. They just decided not to. Just decided not to be tried together. Give me just, oh no. Give me just a second. So on August 21st, 2007, based on being convicted of first-degree murder, each received a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, and 30 years to life for being convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. So there was the murder charge, and then there was like the conspiracy charge, which is apparently, I did not know this, is two different things, but they go hand in hand. So, like, you can be convicted separately of a conspiracy to commit murder, like you planned to commit a murder, but you can also be charged for murder. So, you can't be charged with, so you can be charged with conspiracy to commit murder without being convicted of murder. So, that's similar to what we call, attempted murder or premeditated murder. My hearing is not cooperating with me. OMG. Got it. Anyway. Adamczyk and Draper are both serving their time at Idaho State Correctional Institution, located in unincorporated Ada County, Idaho, near Kuna. In November 2019, Adamczyk's sentence was upheld after his appeal was denied by the Idaho Supreme Court. The convicted men's attorneys filed separate appeals at the Idaho Supreme Court in September 2010 for Adamczyk and in April 2011 for Draper. Draper was seeking to have his conviction vacated or to be given a limited life sentence. That would allow for his release on parole if approved after 30 years. The first appeal for both Adamczyk and Draper was denied in a 3-2 decision. The High Court vacated Draper's conviction on conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, saying that jurors were given erroneous instructions on that charge, but they affirmed his conviction for first-degree murder and life sentence without parole. In July 2015, Adamczyk gained a hearing for post-conviction relief with State 6th District Magistrate Judge Mitchell W. Brown. He claimed that testimony from character witnesses could have changed the outcome of the sentencing, but that his former attorney, against his parents' wishes, chose not to call upon these witnesses. Adamczyk said that his attorney believed that the prosecution would have submitted even more damaging evidence. In March 2016, Judge Brown denied his request for post-conviction relief. Adamczyk appealed Judge Brown's decision to the Idaho Supreme Court, which on December 26, 2017, rejected his appeal for post-conviction relief and upheld the district court decision. In 2010, the Stoddard family filed a civil lawsuit against the Pocatello School District, claiming that school authorities were negligent and should have known that Draper and Adamczyk posed a threat to others, claiming both the civil court and the Idaho Supreme Court dismissed the case, saying the actions of the killers were not foreseeable. This case has been featured in several different television shows and programs, including a February 18th, 2024 episode of the popular true crime series Dateline with correspondent Keith Morrison. And that is the sad but interesting story of Cassie Stoddard and her killers. As always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Be cautiously kind to others and make good choices. And I'll see y'all next Monday. Bye.